as the artist applying to consider to perform. So.
Stacey, can I ask you to give a little bit of an idea for folks here? I presume majority of people have not been at South by Southwest. So talk about the venues, talk about, you know, the line checks and the way we run each showcase, and just give them an idea. If they're actually playing a show with us, what can they expect?
Yeah, well, there's some, so in the same way that this isn't a big open air festival, fancy cars picking you up and backstage hospitality and all of this, this is unique also in that, so we book a lot of artists. So we have maybe, let's say, an average of 100 different stages each night for 5 nights, 6 nights now technically. But Austin is actually quite small. The footprint of the main city center is quite small. So we actually, this is part of the beauty of our event, is that we take over basically bars, traditional music venues, parking lots, restaurants, you name it. And we bring in production and stages if they aren't already there, and we have a really easily traversable footprint. So by foot, you can get from one venue to the next, to the next, and it's primarily going to be indoor, outdoor, but it's not like these big open air where we just set up stages in a field. It's in, you know, it's one building and then you enter, leave, go into the next, go into the next. But, you know, the furthest ones apart from each other might be a 10 or 15-minute walk, maybe. But so the way that it works for the shows is what we call throw and go. Basically, there's like a 2-hour window before the doors or the first act is on, really, where we've got to load everything in. The artists have to get there with their gear, check in. You line check. There's no sound check. So that means you have the 20 minutes you share with the band getting their shit off the stage and you getting yours on the stage to line check. I mean, this is really... it's a rough operation, I'm not gonna lie. So, but everybody knows that, and the people attending know that, because this is the other part. This is the industry, right? They know what we're doing. We know what we're doing, and the truth is that you have got to be, as an artist, you have to be prepared to shine through all of that, really, too. So that's the other thing, where that level of talent and professionalism has to really be there, because this isn't the place where you can, you know, pardon my language, but dick around on your computer or your computer nowadays, I guess, or your guitar or whatever for the first 20 minutes of your 40-minute set, and then complain that the sound was shitty, and then play 2 songs and storm off because you know what you just did, like, just ruined your experience. Because even if everything goes wrong and you could play 1 song, like, you better play it really, really well, because it still might be somebody that's the right somebody watching that 1 song.
And how long are the sets, Stacey?
Typically about 40 minutes. 40-minute sets, typically. So.
And with 6 artists on the bill, is that right? 5 or
typically,
6?
On average. So if they're live sets, we would start a show at 8 o'clock, and hard curfew at most of all of our venues is 2 a.m. So let's just say it's 40-minute set, 20-minute changeover would be an average of 6 artists per lineup. But it also can vary depending on the sets that they have. Obviously, some people have shorter sets if they're newer in their career. Some might have longer if they're more established kind of headliners. And then traditionally, too, different genres, like hip hop, for instance, will have shorter sets on average. So that can be messed with. But yeah, as a live band.
And that brings up a good question. So how is South by Southwest booking Brazilian bands? I mean, can the Brazilians expect to be playing as a group, like, for example, the Colombians have in the past played as a group, or can they expect to fall into whatever category of music that they perform? How does that work?
Well, so, I mean, one thing I didn't mention, and if you're familiar with the event, you probably already know this, but we are also all genre. So and while some programs from year to year might be more heavy in one particular genre, that's only because we don't set quotas for ourselves. We base it based on who has applied and what we want to take. So we're not trying to get X amount of bands from these countries or X amount of bands in these genres and then make it all fit. We take what we want. We take what we like. And if one year it's more Latin American than the year before, so be it. If one year is more hip hop than the year before, okay, that's what we got. That's what we want to work with that year. The way that the showcases, the individual showcases are organized can be different. We work, as I said before, directly with some industry, so record labels, booking agents, media outlets, also export offices, and other interested industry in companies or consumer brands even, and they may organize an entire lineup with us. We curate it together. So in that instance, you can see a lineup that's representative of a particular label's roster for their priorities for that coming year. Or you could see there's a lot of people that might come together to create sort of like you were saying in Colombia, a Sounds of Colombia night. And so maybe that's some funding bodies, some record labels, some management, some labels, but they all came together to make a collective night with us based on the artists from that region that we invited to package the night together to help create a unified identity. But that's not the only way. We also have what we internally call them unattached or indie shows. And these are the shows that we just curate ourselves that maybe don't have that sort of umbrella promoter attached to it, but they're artists that we've accepted. And those are generally going to be more organized by similar genres. And we put them in the venues that we contract, in these spaces all around the downtown area. So some lineups can be really diverse, especially if it's media or presented by a certain region. The genres. You might have hip hop and rock and world and something on one lineup. Others might be very genre specific. If it's a world music promoter, for instance, like a Womax or Global Fest, then you're going to have a lot of different artists representing different areas of the world all on one lineup. Or if it's something that we build, perhaps it's all kind of shoegaze, guitar, or whatever, but from all people who seemingly have no relationship to one another, except that they have similar styles, and we build that lineup. So there's any
Great.
number of ways that this happens.
Good one. So finally, Mark will weigh in on this conversation. Mark and I have worked together for over 20 years, and we came into South by Southwest to really build the profile of the company internationally. So together we've done a lot of different things in different countries to try to do that. Mark himself has a history as an A&R man with Columbia Records and then later Sony Records, of course, and he's done international A&R. And today has management and music publishing, and has done a lot of work with international artists who have a career profile in their home country and are trying to get a toehold in that very elusive American market. He's had clients performing at South by Southwest and used that as a platform for the development that he's done, and he's observed a lot of other people doing some very clever things to take that investment in South by Southwest and really make it count. So I'll turn it over to him.
I'm sure you guys have a ton of questions, so I'm going to be brief. Actually, I have a ton of questions just from Stacey and Tracy. but actually, I was just thinking, just to get into kind of some practical things, that when talking about how the throw and go concept of South by Southwest, it's a really good training ground, because actually, if you're playing Coachella, you're playing Bonnaroo, it's not going to actually be a lot different unless you're a headliner. I've worked with some very famous acts, European acts, even come down here to play festivals like Rock in Rio and Lollapalooza, or Vive Latino in Mexico, or Stereo Picnic in Colombia. And we're not, even though these artists are very, very famous where they come from, they're not particularly famous here. They're just really nice left field additions to a lineup. And we literally get a South by Southwest style line check and have to play. And for somebody who's used to headlining stadiums where they come from, it's kind of like a mindfuck. But luckily, these guys all came and played South by Southwest before, because it was exactly the same experience. Because only headliners are getting sound checks in that environment.
Maybe not even.
Maybe not even. And Stacey's exactly right, because if you know, the audience actually, the audience probably doesn't know, only you know. And if there's whether it's fans or there's, in the case of a consumer festival, but in something like South by Southwest, if there's just the right 3 booking agents there, it doesn't matter. It could be just one single person there, but when that one single person from
Like in the room. There could be one
be.
person in the room, but don't fuck it up, because that person's probably there for a reason.
Exactly. That person could be from a big media outlet. They could be a booking agent. They could be a major label A&R person. And the industry professionals, everybody knows what's going on. They don't need you to be playing the show of your life with your 100-person crew. But in one song, 2 songs, if they see somebody nailing it, that could be all it takes, and that could be that pivotal moment that happens at a place like South by Southwest.
So how do you put it into your overall marketing strategy, though? I mean, if you does it make sense for anybody in this room to say, okay, I'm going to come play that one show at South by Southwest, and that's going to be it? Does it have to be with a tour? Or, you know, how making the investment they're going to be making from Brazil, how can they best use it?
When I manage bands and a band tells me that they want to play South by Southwest, and I've worked for South by Southwest for over 15 years now, 17 years now, the first thing I say to myself is, oh, fuck. The reason is that because you really have to have a plan of going into South by Southwest of what you want to get out of it on the other side. And that could be a lot of things. I mean, for some bands who are maybe literally just starting out, and for them, maybe just to come and say they played it, that's enough. And they meet some other bands, and maybe they meet a band from France meets an American band, it meets a Brazilian band, and they all like become friends, and they invite each other to play with each other. Maybe that's okay, but at every different level that an artist is working at, you're going to want to get something else out of it. So from meeting another band to getting signed by a major label, and every single thing in between is what you have to consider. For right now, I'm managing a band that it's quite a big group. It's only been playing in New York, but getting just absolutely amazing press. They've been just in the last month in Rolling Stone and Pitchfork and Stereo Gum and Consequence of Sound and Brooklyn Vegan and all the top blogs, but they really haven't played out of New York. And they're debating whether, well, they are going to South by Southwest because now they have to, because they have to get to, this is the time for them to get to another level. And it's going to be expensive for them, and they're not rich people. They don't have to worry about visas and international flights and things like that. That's fine, but it's going to be an undertaking to them. They're all young, they're all just recent college grads in their 20s, but we literally cannot wait one more year, because it's like we have this mountain of press now, nobody's seen them. So now we can get people who've been reading about them from all over the United States and all over the world to come see them. They have to literally, it'd be a lot easier for us to get talent buyers, festival promoters, booking agents, different people in different parts of the industry. It's a very cinematic kind of a sound, so we can get music publishing people, sync people to come see them, and it's going to be a lot cheaper to do that than to actually take them to do shows in LA, San Francisco, Chicago, and all over the place.
Do you think that you need a record release in the United States? Do you need a partner label, or in Europe, to make sense to play South by Southwest?
Well, I don't really know what a record release is anymore, because because everybody's putting out music. if you're self-releasing, I mean, the whole world is self-releasing, and we're in an environment now where whether you drop it on SoundCloud or you are going through a service, a TuneCore kind of service, or maybe here like an Altofonte or Believe is here and stuff. You know, if you're working at home and you're getting attention, you're getting on playlists here, you're getting on Spotify New Music Friday Brazil. You have certain fans streaming. You're getting a certain kind of press here. If you could translate that into getting some international blog attention, you are a label. And actually, this is what. I mean, the major labels and even bigger indie labels, I mean, for better or worse, we're in a data-driven period of A&R. I've seen A&R change from over the past 30 years in so many different ways. Now we're in a very data-driven business, and you might come into South by Southwest with a good amount of followers on Spotify Brazil, some really major playlists. Maybe that's getting out into some other countries. You maybe are getting, if you're doing things right, you might be yourself or through a publicist in the States, you might be getting some nice blog press. And people, American labels are going to notice this. As soon as you start getting a certain kind of a thing going on, which might be like popping up on Hype Machine or popping up in certain Spotify blogs, the industry internationally is going to know it, and it would not be unusual then for a major label to say, holy shit, this thing has 1 million streams on Spotify now, and we can take this over from here. We could actually license it from the Brazilians, independent, even from a Brazilian self-release, and we can take it from here.
Yeah, and I would say even from our evaluation perspective in the last 10 years, you know, that change from paying attention to how you maybe have an artist has released previously, whether or not it was independent, purely self-released, to an independent label, to a label of a little bit higher acclaim, et cetera, or having distribution in the US versus their home country. That stuff has started to matter less and less to us now as we do enter this more data-driven experience. But at the same time, I think it's important to stop for everybody to kind of realize that this industry is no longer linear as it has been in the past. There's no one step to the next that informs where you're going to go from there. It's actually, you can go from anything to just getting the right sync placement somewhere, and then that will drive for the one song, the attention that will drive the numbers on your digital streaming, that will then pique somebody else's interest, but that's actually going to get you the money to be able to go to the next place to meet that. None of it is linear anymore, where you have to do this first, and then you'll get this, and then you'll get that. So the whole idea of having U.S. distribution or U.S. labels specifically before you come to the U.S. at all is not necessary. I'm not going to say it doesn't help, though. It's all going to be case specific now, which makes it even harder to tell people when the right time is to come, because you just have to take everything into consideration.
Yeah, it is, as Stacey said, it is really a non-linear world now, but you always have to be open for partnerships, and it surprisingly doesn't take a lot to get something going on if you are good and you're getting the word out there. But as soon as the ball starts rolling a little bit, you'd be really surprised that all of a sudden, a booking agent in the UK says, gee, I've been seeing what you're doing. Do you have an agent? And it's really interesting, because as soon as it's like the dominoes start falling down, or the snowball rolls down the hill and gets bigger and bigger, but just getting these things out there in motion and finding partners, the partners are probably going to approach you, and then you have to assess them and see if it's interesting to work together and you feel you can get to the next level together. But if you can, then you'd be surprised just how many things might come along when you need them, from a booking agent to even a big independent label or even a major label.
Yeah, and I think what's really important to underscore to what Mark is saying is that all of those people, all of those groups of industry people that he mentioned, that Stacey's mentioned, they are all there. We have a total of 60,000 registered participants in South by Southwest coming through South by Southwest week. The city of Austin has estimated upwards of 300,000 people, so it's huge. and all the people that you want to meet, excuse me, are there. So targeting the people that you are hoping will come into your show or that you want to meet as a professional, that's a big part of your homework that you would be doing in January and February, getting prepared for South by Southwest.